All right, how are y'all doing tonight? I'm Captain Stephen Fields. This is a Navionics webinar presented by Bass Pro Shops. Redfish time is now. And we're going to be discussing a variety of topics tonight. But if there's anything that I don't cover that you would like to hear of, just let me know at the end by placing your questions and I'll get to all those at the end. All right, again, my name is Captain Stephen Fields. We're going to be going over a bunch of redfish topics tonight. And about me, I'm a professional saltwater guide as well as a redfish tournament angler. I fish avidly anywhere from the Gulf Coast to the East Coast. I do live and guide in Charleston, South Carolina. A few topics we're going to be discussing: fishing deep structure like jetty rocks, fishing docks, fishing the flats, fishing the creeks, and going over recommended equipment and baits that I use every day as well. And again, the presentation is going to last about 30 to 40 minutes, and we're going to have question and answers at the end of the presentation. So you're welcome to ask any questions you might have throughout this presentation, and I will get to those at the end. All right, deep structure. There's a lot of things you can do this time of the year, the end of the summer, towards the beginning of the fall. Big bull reds around deep structures such as jetty rocks is a big draw for a lot of anglers this time of the year, whether you're on the Gulf Coast or the East Coast where I'm at. Targeting these rocks, you're looking for holes, drops, points, offshore structure. And by offshore structure, I'm talking about roll-off rocks that have come off over time that might be laying off the main structure just offshore of the jetties. Those tend to hold a lot of fish as well. Any sort of difference in the structure, such as a large piece like a jetty or something like that, you're looking for a lot of differences, whether that be a certain hole, a steeper drop or rise, the points, the ends of the jetties, cut throughs, washouts where water freely flows over the rocks, anything where it creates an ambush point for the redfish. And this time of the year, we've got a ton of bait. We got a big mullet run, especially right here in Charleston right now. You've got menhaden, everything's passing through, getting washed through, and these reds are just chomping down. So the jetties is a great place to check out on the days you can get out there, depending on what boat you have. But it's something you just don't want to pass up, especially in our area. And I know I'll be on the Gulf Coast late summer, early fall, get involved some of their bull reds down there. It's a lot of fun tackling these big reds. Pretty much what we're using in these situations, large jig heads or a Carolina rig. Pretty much using 4,000 to 5,000 spinning reels. Yes, you can beef it up to 5,000, but you don't really need to. I enjoy using the 4,000 to 5,000 range spinning reels with the 7-foot medium heavy spinning rods. Just a great setup overall out there. It's not too heavy where you get a good bit of fight out of the fish, but it's not too light where you're going to get spooled by a shark or something that came by and got you. Using 30-pound braid, you can use a little more if you'd like. 50-pound fluorocarbon leader, half-ounce to 1-ounce headlocks HD jig heads. These are great jig heads, hold on to the bait well, great hooks. 5 to 7-inch swim baits is usually what I'm going to start pitching out there as far as artificials go. When using live bait, I stick to the Carolina rig, using enough weight to keep the bait in position. It just depends where you're at. Here in Charleston, South Carolina, and on the East Coast, in the little tidal bowl that we're in, we get a lot of heavy tides, especially this time of the year. So using enough weight is key to keep that bait in position and in the strike zone for the longest amount of time. Using a 3/0, 5/0 circle hook. I do use owner circle hooks. There's plenty other good hooks out there as well, but the owner's what I've trusted for years and grew up with. So live mullet and cut mullet, those both work, and sometimes it doesn't matter. I always start off with a whole live finger mullet, sometimes a little bit larger than a finger mullet. We got a lot of big ones in right now. Cut mullet, I think about 2 weeks ago, cut mullet was the ticket here. So cutting it up in chunks. Sometimes they want a little smaller presentation. Just what depends what they're eating on, what the size is. You want to match the hatch. Live menhaden, using it whole. Blue crab quartered up. You can use that year round. Usually early fall is when I'll start getting back into that again. And then first of the spring, when the reds are moving into the jetties thick, is when I'll use that. But it's good year round. But there's so much mullet in right now, as well as menhaden. We're kind of focusing on using those baits. Going back to inshore, which, you know, is a great time to fish inshore. No matter where you're at, late summer, early fall, one of my favorite times of the year. Bait's plentiful. It's still hot, but it'll start cooling off a little bit, you know, for southeastern standards anyways, into the early fall. And that's a great time of the year to target inshore specifically. The reds are going to start schooling up a little bit more. And just a great way to do a little bit of sight fishing, blind casting. Late summer, early fall, strong tidal currents. We have the king tides this time of year that get a little crazy. So I like to target heavy structure inshore. And one of my favorite structures inshore, of course, is docks. And a lot of captains around here in my area target docks as well. It's just something that's our bread and butter. We've got a lot of them. There's a lot of them that fit the bill on what I'm looking for when I'm looking for docks. And what I'm looking for is just something different. I mean, there's a lot of docks, and a lot of docks are the same. But I like docks that have something different about them, and I will start patterning that after I find one that works. So the dock in the picture right there, if you can see it, I mean, there's a lot of growth on it. Oysters, barnacles. That's something different. There's oyster bars surrounding a dock, or feeder creeks that are around or near a dock. A main flat that the dock could be sitting on, or coming off of a main flat. It gives the fish somewhere to fall out to as their next staging point. I always want a dock that holds water even at the lowest tides. And as you can see on the chart right there, there's a couple docks that are sticking out in the white. That white's going to represent anywhere to 2 to 5 foot of water. And that means that dock's going to hold water even at the lowest of low tides. The green's going to be all dry. So you can see here the docks that will produce, and the fish are falling off the flats from the high outgoing tide. They're going to start staging on these oysters and these docks and these deeper parts of it. Just a great way to pick apart a bunch of docks throughout a day, power fishing these docks and picking up a lot of reds. It's a lot of fun for not just me but also my clients. It's just a great way to get kids involved as well. And pretty much what I'm using when targeting these docks, 3,000 to 4,000 spinning reels. So dialing it down, of course, coming inshore. Some docks, it depends. You might need to stick to that 4,000, crank it down, make sure you either get them out or break them off, get them out trying anyways. Because a lot of times there's some bruisers on some of these docks that got a little lost and they took up residence there and they want to stay. So you'll get some bull-like reds around some of these docks, especially this time of the year, and you have to really beef up your tackle a little bit. But and 7-foot medium heavy spinning rods. If I know a dock's got a lot of heavier fish on it and it's a little bit deeper, maybe 5, 6 foot of water, I'm gonna stick with the 4,000 and medium heavy spinning rods. 15 to 20 pound braid, 20 to 30 pound fluorocarbon leader. And I'll using the jig heads, which I'll flip the docks with quite often. I'm going from an 1/8 ounce to 1/2 ounce jig head, just enough weight again to deal for the current and the tide. Putting swim baits or artificial shrimps on the jig heads is a great way to give it a little bit of action. Especially I use Elastec technology, which Z-Man makes, so it's naturally buoyant. So it's really going to work out well. Not only are you going to be flipping quickly and power fishing, but that Elastec technology of the artificial shrimp or the swim bait just dances and moves just right, just gives it a little bit of extra, which is what you need a lot of times to catch their attention. Especially we have a lot of dirtier water this time of the year in my area. The color of shrimp I actually have right here is one of my favorites this time of the year, the pearl with chartreuse tail. It's just kind of a color I have confidence in and stick to. As far as live baits, again, the tried and true Carolina rig, which is what I use a lot on my charters. Just easy for my clients to use. Just pretty much either your bullet weight or your egg sinker to swivel to leader to hook. And I'm using anything from like a 1/0 to 2/0 hook. It depends on what size fish I'm going after. Live finger mullet, live shrimp. Both of these will do the trick around these docks. And again, as 2 weeks ago, I had to switch over to cut finger mullet. That was the ticket, especially up in the grass around structure as well. But this time of the year, if you can get some shrimp, get them. They're loving them. Fishing the flats inshore. Sight fishing to blind casting, you can do it all. Again, a lot of these flats will eventually lead you down to structures such as docks as the tide's falling out, or you can start there and work as the tide's going in. You can work all tides on these flats. There's a lot of stuff to do. I kind of like to, go to flats that I hadn't been to in a while and just explore. It's a great way to put the trolling motor down and go bass fishing. Kind of like bass fishing anyways. Flats with deep water access is what I'm looking for. Flats that have creeks, oysters, any differences that set them apart. That's kind of a key topic that keeps coming up, just differences, anything that sets an area apart from another. And then once you find something that works, then you start patterning that. This is a situation right here that has worked out well for me. There's a major creek flowing out into the main river. And there's also a couple of feeder creeks coming off of it onto the flat. It's a nice gradual slope that's leading out into some deeper water access. There's a lot of oysters on this flat, and I will start out at a high tide, whether it be high incoming, high outgoing. I'll start at that grass line. I'll be pitching soft plastics into the grass, sight fishing if the opportunity arises, of course. Also slow burning a spinnerbait, a spoon, anything to cover a lot of water effectively, because these fish are going to be, especially on a high outgoing or high incoming, they're going to be in the grass, or they're going to be on the edge of the grass. They're going to be sticking to safety and structure best as they can. And as these fish fall out, of course, I'm going to back off, and they're going to start staging on the outside of the grass onto the oysters, working their way down to a dock if there's one, the edges of creek mouths. And bait and current movement are a big deal as well, especially as that water gets lower. No stagnant water. I don't like a flat that's too protected and has no tidal movement, or it's just stagnant. I like a little water, a little current movement, and you definitely want to be looking for bait. These flats come alive though. You get on a productive flat, you're going to see if it's on or if it's not. You're going to see birds. You're going to see usually other species feeding as well, such as trout. I like getting on to exploring flats early in the morning and just seeing how they move on and off a flat, how they're working, and just learn from them, pattern them. Just a great opportunity to fish the flats this time of year leading into early fall as well. Pretty much what I'm using on the flats, I'm going to start toning it down again, especially for longer casts, lighter line, lighter fluorocarbon leader. 2,500, 3,000 is usually what I'm sticking with as far as artificial baits go. Beef it up to 4,000 with a Carolina rig, or if I'm having to pitch some heavier stuff up into the grass, I'll go to the 4,000. 7-foot medium light, medium, or medium heavy, again depending on the reel. 7-foot medium light I'm using on the 2,500. 3,000 I'll either use the medium light or medium. 4,000 medium heavy all day long. 10 to 20 pound braid, 20 pound fluorocarbon leader, 1/8 ounce to 1/4 ounce jig head if I'm using a jig head, swim bait or a shrimp again. The Texas rig, which I love especially for fishing the grass, it's weedless or around any structure like oysters. I'm rigging that with a swim bait or a shrimp as well. Spinner bait, again, slow rolling it through the grass on the edge of the grass. As it gets lower, once it gets out of the grass, the hard bait I'll switch to if I'm using a hard bait and still searching is going to be the spoon, the tried and true. If there was only one bait I could have or use, it would be the spoon. Creeks, still, a part of the flats and the estuary that we have that we're blessed with in the southeast. Creeks are another fun part of inshore fishing. It's a blast. I love exploring creeks. I love taking clients if I can get one or two serious anglers to get on a boat, not a family mode. So that's usually more toward the fall when I get those type of groups. It's just a great experience to get in there and explore, and it turns from fishing into hunting kind of, and it's just a blast to sight fish and find these fish and pattern these fish in these creeks. A lot of times when the reds are feeding heavily in the creeks, it's hard to cast. You're just watching them. It's an awesome sight to see. I like good tidal flow in these creeks. I want a creek, even at the lowest tide, is still going to hold a little bit of water, because of course if it's dry they're not going to be there. Definitely good tidal flow, no stagnant water. Deeper holes in creeks can produce, which I've picked in one of the screenshots there. A lot of these deeper holes will produce trout as well, and flounder. So there's multiple species you can pop in here, but the reds will also gather there, especially in the warmer months. If you're not seeing the reds, we usually do in the shallow parts of the creeks, kind of drop back to some holes and stuff, especially holes off creek mouths and points. They can be sitting in there. They're sneaky little rascals. I've caught many fish backtracking. It's amazing how you just go over them. Oysters, structure, and creeks, that's a definitely a good giveaway. Study your maps, your satellite imagery on your Navionics cards on your chart plotter, as well as using the Navionics boating app. It's a great tool to scout. You can find these oyster bars and structure and such, sandbars. It's great for navigating these creeks, kind of pre-gaming in your mind how to run these shallow creeks, which is important to me because most time I'm running a Blue Wave Bay boat inshore. So it's important for me to know where I'm navigating, know where I'm going. Scenarios that set apart from other creeks. Again, that same topic. The same things that produce are going to keep producing. It's pretty common theme for it to be able to pattern these creeks after another. One of the patterns that keeps working out for me, we call it Three Sisters. Usually any little major creek that produces three little feeder creeks off and fingers that have water, they're not going to be dry. They produce. I mean, I'd say 50% of the time. So I got a 50-50 shot when I'm exploring new territories, and that's worked for me from North Florida all the way up to northern part of the South Carolina coast. It's just a great pattern that I have that's worked. My tournament partner Jeff Crumpton down in Fernandina Beach, Florida, kind of turned me on to that one, and it's produced ever since. So I thank him for that. Always learning. With the Gulf Coast, our little feeder creeks coming off major creeks are kind of like their ponds. You can pattern a lot of those ponds after another, and when their ponds kind of go dry, depending on the wind or the tide, they kind of drop back out into the main channels and stuff like that. And same with us, with the holes in the main channels of the creeks and stuff, they'll fall out. But creek fishing is an awesome opportunity, something to take advantage of this time of year leading into early fall. Bay boat, or if you got a flats boat, skinny water boat, aluminum boat, it's a great way to get after them. I'm definitely going lightweight in the creeks. It's just fun. 2,500 to 3,000 spinning reels is average for everybody. 7-foot medium light, medium spinning rods, matching the lure size with the bait size, which is real important in the skinny. These fish are definitely aware. They know you're there. They feel pressure. They know what they're after. They don't have to eat your bait. So matching the hatch is important. Going 16th ounce to 8th ounce jig head usually. Swim bait, shrimp on there. Now I'll tone it down a lot, especially the slim swims that Z-Man produces. It's a great little bait on a little jig head. The easy shrimps, again, Great bait with a lot of action due to the Elastec technology. Something you can work in front of these fish as they're popping after the grass shrimp going up and down the creek edges. Texas rig, again, around oysters, any structure, grass, love it. Definitely a higher tide in the creeks, high falling tide or incoming tide where I'm having to get up in the edge of the grass or around flooded over oysters, a great rig to use. And the spoon, great search lure. Again, if there's only one I could have, it would definitely be the spoon. These are just all great tools to use in the creeks. Just fun getting after them. I hate them talking about it and not doing it, getting me excited. Pretty much all the equipment I've spoken about tonight is what I personally use. So with rods and reels, it's going to be the Daiwa BG. That's just tried and true, hardcore. It lasts a long time, even with 200 something charter trips a year. Kids, grinding the gears. It just lasts. It's a great setup for anyone. Great price tag as well on these setups. They just work well for me, and that's what I use. Z-Man jig heads, the Texas rig jig head as well. Spinnerbait, soft plastics, all Z-Man products. I just love them. Great product of the Low Country. And Aqua Dream spoons by Mike Hockala down in St. Augustine, Titusville area. Great spoons. They hold up well. The hook doesn't get loose. It just hangs in there real well. The one thing I do recommend is on the split ring, I will add a swivel to that to prevent line twists and such. It turns into a great setup. They have a bunch of colors of those spoons. I don't stick just to the traditional gold color. I'll go copper. I'll actually use a black and chartreuse as well for low light conditions. Really works well. You can crank it fast, just subsurface, the top of the water, and they'll react to it like a top water plug. And you can also crawl across the bottom, kind of imitates a crab. Just, all these baits are good for working all the different depths of the water column. And that does make a difference as well. And as it's posted here, you can't catch them if you don't go. So you need to get out there. It's a great time of year. Even for a seasoned veteran or just a beginner or taking your kids out, it's a fun time of year. Get you a couple dozen shrimp, get out there and target these fish. And questions and answers. All right. Yeah, I know there's a lot of stuff that I didn't cover that you might have questions about, and I'll be more than happy to go over those with you. I know there's a lot of subjects I can't cover all of them. I might even forget, and you all, bring that out and to my attention. And they're usually great questions. So. Have you ever fished the lagoons of Palmetto Dunes in Hilton Head Island? I have not. That's one of the areas that I've been invited to fish with buddies quite a bit, but I have not gotten to do that. And I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's world class from what I hear. Wife, kids. One day I'll drag them down there and get to go out with some friends and stuff, and we'll have a good time. But I look forward to that as well. Great question. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, great area to fish. What lure would you recommend for sight casting to tailing reds? Well, I would definitely check out a weedless jig head first for in the grass, and Z-Man has the trout eye jig heads that will work well for that, and also that Texas rig jig that I had a picture of. That's a great hook and weight setup to do so. Keeps it weedless. You want the least amount of interference as you can when targeting these reds. You don't want to make a great cast and get snagged. That Easy Shrimps is a good one. That Slim Swims, it's a very small swim bait they make's a good one. I didn't have a picture of it. It's called a flats jig. It's a silicone skirt jig. It is a great bait to use. It's almost like you're fly fishing. Just I always dial it down, use the lightest weight one possible. But those are pretty much my three go-tos when targeting tailing reds. Oh, the spoon. Yeah, I left out the gold spoon. Sorry. Got to throw that. Got to have that in your bag as well. Does all the rain we have been getting affect how far a red travels inland? I believe so. Yes, it does. And I mean, the salinity levels, I don't have one. I've been meaning to get one for years and years and years. I got another buddy down in Florida that has a salinity level tester, and it does him well. That's for sure. But yeah, it affects how far inland it goes. You know, targeting areas closer to the ocean. That doesn't mean you can't go inland some, but you know, fresher the salt water, the higher salinity level, the better it's going to be. Now, reds love brackish water, so I never put anything past them. Sometimes everything I say, you can throw it out the window. Never put it past the redfish. What would you suggest for night fishing reds? My friends like to use cut mullet. I've never done a lot of night fishing for reds. I've been gigging and seen big giant schools of reds that are never there in the daytime. So I would like to give it a shot at night some more, but that was kind of in my youth and my school days. But suggestion for night fishing, yeah, you can't go wrong with cut mullet. Crab, I believe they feed heavily on crab in the evenings as well, especially blue crab. So give that a shot. Quarter up some blue crab, put it out on a Carolina rig. Is Navionics worth the money if only being used on a mobile device? It's definitely worth the money for a chart card for your chart plotter. It's definitely going to bring the best out in your chart plotter and get you the most out of it. You know, especially as far as coastal goes, the Platinum Plus charts are excellent all-in-one cards. You don't just get satellite imagery overlay, you also get the navigational charts, the sonar charts, which are 1-foot contours, as well as map options, great features like dock-to-dock auto routing. As far as the mobile device, I use it equally as much. Like I said, not just for on the water, but as a backup and off the water, planning routes. It has the same great features, same great charts. If you got a Wi-Fi enabled unit, I will use Plotter Sync a ton when sharing waypoints and routes. Also updating my charts through my app on my unit. Just a great tool. Good question. Favorite tide, incoming or outgoing? Well, I'd say for inshore red fishing, low incoming and high mid outgoing. That way I can ambush them. I know where they're going to be. I have a lot of confidence on those tides. Fishing deeper water, we always have our favorite tides as well. One side of the jetty, I like to fish on the high outgoing. One side of the jetty, I like to fish on the mid to high incoming. Another good question. Why do some redfish have 2 dots on their tails? Do you think they are special or something? That's a good one. I have no idea, but I would like to think so. Some are artists. I've seen smiley faces. I've seen hearts. So there's a lot of cool designs out there. You know, nature's awesome. I'm glad we get to see it. But yeah, I have no idea why. Some have multiple dots, just a genetic thing. I'm sure some scientists could prove me wrong. Good question, though. Funny question. All right, any more questions? Now is the time to ask them. Do you fly fish any? I do. Not as much as I used to. I'm so busy with charter style fishing now with the bay boat. But I do have some tried and true clients that go with me over and over throughout the years who become friends of mine. So we'll go fly fishing a lot. Now, when it gets a little bit cooler, fall and winter, I do a lot of fly fishing. I am fly fishing 50% of the time for sure, as well as traveling around. Got a lot of buddies in Florida that fly fish, as well up in North Carolina. So I love it. I like the pursuit of the fish, and just going back to the roots of fishing. It's just a great way to go about it. I think it's definitely a purist thing. I'd say lately it's kind of gotten to a fad thing, So I'm kind of like the anti fly fisherman. So I don't want to wear the buff. I don't want any of the any of that stuff where I look like I'm protecting myself from the sun as if it's falling down on me. I like to just wear some jeans, maybe some jorts, just kind of go old school. Sorry, that got weird there. Cool question though. Have you ever fished on Edisto Island? I have. I don't fish the South Edisto River much anymore, but I fish the North Edisto quite a bit. Um, I'd say lately the fishing in the North Edisto, and by lately I mean the past couple of years, just hadn't been the same. It's definitely a lot tougher. I don't know why. I'm having to, make some good runs in between spots to target fish. I'd say the flounder bite has gotten pretty good in the North Edistos the past couple of weeks. Um, Running upriver a little bit, the redfish bite's been good. The trout's been okay closer to the inlet. It just there hadn't been any consistent trout bite there this year. Have you ever fished Oregon Inlet, North Carolina? Um, oh, it's been a long time since I fished it. I'd say 6, 7 years since I fished Oregon Inlet. But yeah, it's a great area. I have some close friends that are great guides up there. Captain Rennie Clark is a good one that targets all those areas up there. Big bull reds, big black drum. It's a special area for sure. If I use my spot lock on my trolling motor and or using my fish finder hinder catching, nah, not necessarily. I mean, yeah, if I'm in only a few feet of water or something like that, and I'm near fish and I have my trolling motor in spot lock mode, unless they're on some crazy jacked up steroid feeding spree, it'll spook them, no doubt. A little bit deeper water or targeting docks, holding my boat in position on docks, I usually don't have a problem with it unless I'm right up close on top of them. But as far as working the banks and blind casting, working spinner baits, spoons, it doesn't affect them. I'm far enough off of them where it wouldn't affect them. Any cons to a blue wave? No, zero. Excellent boats, best bay boat made. It is a great boat. It's a Gulf Coast style boat. I will chime in on that. It allows me to do every single thing that I want to do and effectively. I mean, it's got a pocket tunnel hull. It's a performance style hull. I can get up in the skinny. I can get on plane. That 2400 will amaze you what I can fish in, and I can go offshore. I can do everything in one day. Great boat. I love the 22. The 22 was probably my favorite. I mean, that was a tournament style boat right there. Love that thing. Put a 225 or a 250 on it. Sweet boat. Ever fished Fripp Island? I have. I have. Again, it's been a while. Usually when I'm down that way, I'm fishing St. Helena Sound or I'm fishing the Broad River. Um, but I had some good buddies that have been targeting Fripp Island quite a bit. They're guides. I got some friends that went down there and they've been fishing the bridge right there. Uh, that goes to Fripp, and there's been tarpon, big black drum, some bull reds out there. Been pretty good. Do you have any news on the proposed Bass Pro in Charleston? I do not. Only thing I know is it was put on hold at some point. I have no idea. Hopefully, when everything settles down, it'll come through. I feel like it will. We don't have one. We need one. Any tools or gadgets you cannot go without? That's a good one. That's awesome. I'm not even smart enough to ask that question. And I'm having like a brain fart moment here. I might not even be smart enough to answer that question. Let me see. I mean, pliers. Yeah, gotta have pliers. I have better luck with the cheaper pliers. I don't know. They just last longer. I'm done buying the expensive ones. I've been using some affordable pliers lately. A good knife, a venting tool. That's going to be a good one to point out for right now. That's why you asked that question. That's a good question. A venting tool to properly vent fish. Right now, redfish, big bull reds. There's been a lot of incidents in Charleston Harbor at the jetties or around other deep structure lately where anglers are not properly venting their fish or not venting them at all. I'm not placing blame on anybody. Some people just don't know. But yeah, it's a great question. You know, it's a great way to educate people about properly venting fish. That actually would be a great topic for a webinar. I might have to do that in the future for sure. Just playing out good old education on fishing and how to sustain it and properly take care of what we've been blessed with. Appreciate you asking that question. But yeah, the venting tool, that'd be a good one. Will there be a mullet run in the Carolinas? And making the inshore fishing even better. Yeah, we have a decent little mullet run in the Carolinas. I mean, tarpon are here right now. And there's been guys targeting them pretty heavily for a couple months now and with much success. What up, Captain? Who's this? Jason Broom. I hear you, buddy. You learned something tonight. Have you ever fished Sunset Beach, North Carolina? I know where it's at. Probably couldn't put a finger on the map, but I'm sure I've fished around it. I mean, I used to fish a lot on coastal North Carolina. I'd say from Cape Fear all the way up to Swansboro, all in that area. Great fishery. I like it. A little different from here, but man, when you find the reds up there, you found them. It's a amazing fishery with clear, clean water. Love it. What was the boat brand you were just talking about? Blue Wave Boats. It's a bay boat company out of Seminole, Oklahoma. Been top selling bay boat made on the Gulf or sold on the Gulf Coast for a long time now, making a big push for the East Coast, seeing more around here. It's kind of one of those deals, you know, it's kind of, you go down to Louisiana or Texas and every other boat on the docks is Blue Wave. It's getting that way on the East Coast too, seeing more out there. Great boat, all hand laid hull, 360-degree bonded grid system. It's just excellent made boat. I can trust it day in and day out. The performance of that boat is seeing's believing. You have to get on one, riding one, and fishing one like you would fish, and seeing's believing. What is the biggest red you have seen caught? Man, I personally caught my best. I mean, it was 50 something pounds down in Louisiana. There's some big ones down there, man. Some missiles. I mean, menhaden you can almost walk on from the beach to the oil rig, and then you know hundreds of big old red brown missiles coming in between them. It's in Charleston. I mean, you're doing good catching 40 inchers, 40 45 inchers. There's been some big ones caught, some fat ones. When reviving a fish, do you wag the tail or pull back and forth? I don't do a lot of pulling back and forth. If anything, I'll wag the fish back and forth in the water, but very slightly. I'll kind of rotate my wrist more than anything. I definitely don't want to pull on the fish backwards or anything like that. And again, that goes, usually when I'm having to do a lot of reviving or a little bit of reviving, whatever. In general, it's with a bloated swim bladder of a reef fish or a bull redfish out at the jetties or in deeper water, even at reefs, catching the bull red still. And you vent them, you'll hear it, and they'll go off nice and happy. You have snook in the Charleston area. Nope. I wish we did. It'd be nice to have another species on that list that we can target, but no, I'm sure there's some floating around out there. They've been caught in the inshore waters. A few have. They got lost, I guess. Um, but our winters are a little too cool for them to sustain in the area, I guess. I'm sure there's some way offshore near the Gulf Stream. I mean, that's how they'll get out there and come in. Um, but nah, we don't really have any consistent snook action in Charleston, unfortunately. Be nice if we did. What's the best thing to do with a gut hooked fish? And this is I'm just telling you my personal opinion, so don't slam me. And if it's gut hooked, I mean, you can see that the hook's all the way in there. I'm definitely not pulling on it and hurting the fish. I will trim the line as close as I can without harming the fish, and I will immediately revive the fish in the water. Usually they swim off just like that, no problem. But when using Kale hooks or circle hooks, as far as that goes, I don't really gut hook as many fish anymore. Great setups. Using spoons, I don't gut hook fish. If anything, you've allowed the fish to eat the bait too long. It's going to be on a live bait rig or something like that. But I mean, I've had fish that have just overstepped their bounds before. We were in Louisiana pre-fishing for a tournament years ago for the Obore Alberta tournament down in Empire, Louisiana, and my tournament partner out of Fernandina Beach was casting a topwater plug. I mean, it was a big old topwater plug. And a red came up and swallowed the whole thing. Swallowed it. It was gone. So that fish was legal in Louisiana. We had it for dinner that night. That was the proper way to do it. But he messed up. There was nothing we could do about that. How's your tarpon bite? Been seeing some good ones around Pamlico Sound in North Carolina. Yeah, it's been good. I haven't been able to personally target them as much as I'd like this year. I've gotten a few jumps out of a couple, but that was kind of bycatch, just opportunistic with clients on the boat. I kind of hate it. I just haven't had as many tarpon trips this year, and I hadn't had time to personally go out and have a little fun with them. But maybe I'll get to before it's over. Usually toward the end of the part of the season, I'll get out there on my own accord and have fun with some fellow guides and stuff. But it's been a great tarpon bite so far this year. And I know a few guys up your way that have been seeing some good ones up there, like you said. That's cool, man. Especially after the long winter we've had, in the southeast, everywhere. It's pretty cool how everything's coming alive. What is your favorite tackle shop in the Charleston area? Man, you people are going to get me in trouble. There's all kind of good tackle shops in the area. I will say the one that is mostly visited, the one that everybody gets bait at, the one that we have guide talk about in the morning. We have a few laughs, have our coffee, socialize. It's definitely going to be Hadrill's Point. It's a great tackle shop. Some great staff in there, full of knowledge, well-stocked store, and so I don't leave anybody out. I know the Charleston Angler just reopened as well. There's some familiar faces still in there. They'll be stocked with all the goodies you need as well. Definitely supporting local tackle shops. I try to do that as much as possible as well. All right. Well, if there is no more questions, I hope y'all have learned all you wanted to know. I do appreciate y'all tuning in. It's a pleasure speaking with y'all, and definitely check into future webinars as well. That'll be coming up on the Navionics webpage. You can register and tune into all those. Not only do I conduct these, but I will also attend these myself, especially with the freshwater guys. There's a wealth of knowledge out there with those guys, especially when it comes to marine electronics and fishing offshore in the lake, of course. But you can use a lot of that info for yourself as well. A lot of different tips and techniques out there. I mean, I translate a lot of the bass fishing styles to what I do. So also, definitely go check those out and tune in for more webinars. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Visit my company website, charlestonfishingcompany.com. Definitely visit navionics.com. Definitely want to thank Bass Pro Shops again for co-sponsoring, co-marketing this webinar and getting it out there, getting everybody aware of this webinar and attending. I definitely appreciate that. You can always visit them and get all the tackle needs that you have met. They've got anything and everything you could possibly want, so both online and in store. So again, I do appreciate you all attending, and I hope to see and speak to y'all in a future webinar. Y'all have a great night. Definitely get out there on the water. Tight lines to y'all.